It basically is. It's Theraflu and honey.
Nice.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Tea Drinking Podcast. Your chamomile and your Earl Grey coming at you. Just kidding, everybody. Welcome to episode 129 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with the co-host with the most, Drew at DR_PRA. Drew, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Fighting a little something here. I think the kids got it as well, so we're pushing through, but couldn't miss having a night with Bobby here, so excited to have the show tonight.
And Drew doing the damn thing. He has already given a hint. If you are not watching this on the YouTube, which you should be, we got the man, the myth, the legend. We got Bobby Koch at Wrecked Fantasy. Bobby, how are you, brother?
I'm doing well. And if you're not watching, you're missing out on Drew and I taking turns taking sips of our tea. I don't know if I'm also fighting something or if I just like to drink tea at night. That's still to be determined. Also, I said this on the Trade or Cool Kids Club, which we're all a part of because you're part of the network and I'm just a fan. But I am just a guy. I was asked if I'm famous earlier or like a legend or anything. Just a guy. I don't know why you keep inviting me on your podcast, but I'm glad to be here.
I can tell you why I invited you onto this podcast, because the DAP draft show was just amazing. And that's because Bobby did, I think, about 42 hours in 2 days of just being on the DAP network, just running the draft show pretty much. And I think you now own the entire DAP network after that. So
Legendary.
We got to get the boss on, to just keep up, our standing as the DAP Network C show. So
that's fair. If you listen to last night's Trade Addicts, I let Russ think that he still owned the pod and the network, but it's really mine now.
I mean, that's what true leadership is all about, is making the people under you feel good about themselves, feel good in their position. So I respect it. So, Bobby, before we get started, let all the people know where they can find you and what you're up to, if anything.
Sure. I am literally just on Twitter, so at Wreck Fantasy on Twitter. I occasionally tweet Dynasty football things. I also occasionally tweet anything that's top of mind, as I think everyone pretty much does on social media. So you'll find TV stuff, movie stuff, video games, comic books, or any random thought that crosses my mind. For those who aren't familiar with me, which is probably the majority of you, I used to be a staffer at Dynasty League Football and hosted a few of my own podcasts. I hate this term, but I've seen it used on fantasy Twitter a bunch. So I quote unquote retired, and I always put it in air quotes 2 years ago to focus on my real job. And now I guess I've had enough time pass that I've gotten bitten a bit by the bug of wanting to do it again. And I also am comfortable enough in my job that I feel I can dedicate at least a little time to having a hobby, which I think is probably a good idea for everyone involved.
Love it.
Love it. So we'll get to the tiny bits of news real quick. I think we can spend about 30 seconds on that and then move on. But Mike Davis, last year, some people liked him. He's signing with Baltimore. He'll be the third or fourth running back there. Good luck if you want to take a flyer on him, because you figure the other guys ahead of him will get hurt. But I kind of pumped him up last year because I said, who else is there? And they found Cordell Patterson and decided to make him a running back, and I'll put that in quotes because he did most of his fantasy damage in the air. And then Sony Michel signs with Miami, and I think this is a little bit more interesting because I heard a lot of people pumping up Chase Edmonds. They didn't draft anyone in Miami, so now it's his show, even though they have like 78 running backs in Miami. I mean, they signed who did they sign from San Francisco?
They have Salman Ahmed there.
I think they're thinking of Mostart, or otherwise known as Must Start.
Yes, Must Start, Mr. Must Start. So they have him. They still have Salvan Ahmed. They still have Miles Gaskin.
Okay, Mario dodging a bullet all season long last year, only to fail my teams epically.
So I mean, they have guys, and I'm not saying that they have great running backs there, but they are definitely taking after the San Francisco system. Let's just sign 100 guys and let's see how it shakes out. John McGlynn in the chat saying that's Chase Edmonds' backfield.
I don't know, John. Sony had a really good year for the Rams when nobody expected him to. I mean, I'm not saying like he was amazing by any means, but he had a much better year than I think people give him credit for.
Yeah, and he came over late. I mean, I think that was a preseason trade, wasn't it? Where the Patriots traded him to LA. So he didn't have the full off season to learn the playbook and everything. Now he's going to be there. He's going to have some time to learn that playbook, some time to get incorporated. I'll be interested. I'm not crowning Sony Michel, but it's interesting.
I don't know it offhand, but he was. I looked it up. He was traded August 25th of last year, so definitely pretty late into the offseason.
Okay, yeah. So even later than I honestly thought, because that's what, a week and a half before the season started. So yeah, it was pretty much hey, good luck, we're gonna throw you out here. And he came up big in like the playoffs. Like there were probably a couple people who were like, Sony Michel was my flex, or Sony was an emergency RB2 because all my other guys got hurt. And he probably helped some people to a chance. And when I say helped, I mean he was like part of the team. He was getting you points. He wasn't killing you. Not that he had like 30 points in any one week. I know people come at me. He only averaged 14 points a week, and it's like that's all you need from Sony Michel. That's great.
That meme of like it's essentially like the new beginner brain and then like the galaxy brain, and then it's showing them going back to the new beginner brain. So I've come all the way around on essentially taking these cheap running backs. I used to be like, why would I ever roster cheap running backs? Because I should take all the wide receivers, they have upside or whatever. And then like maybe 2 years ago, to your point about Mike Davis and Myles Gaskin, I took them with like third-round picks or something, or traded third-round picks for them. And they both had seasons where they essentially got into my lineup as flex because I was just so desperate, but they were also just working out that way. That I'm now all the way. I advocated strongly against handcuffs and also just like cheaper running backs. Now I'm the other way around. I'm like, trade those wide receiver flyers for backup running backs, because if someone gets injured, you'll get more for them. And that's how I feel about Sony right now, by the way. Like if you could get, I don't know, a late third-round pick for Sony Michel, why not?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do we know what he's getting paid there yet?
You guys chit chat. I'll see if Spotrac has anything.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely. I move that way too, Bobby. I think in startups at least I've gone after maybe one top 5 or 6 running back, and then I'll wait 8-10 rounds to take my RB2 and see who's there, who's hanging out, and then I'll spend a lot of the late round picks on either my own handcuff and other people's, second or third on the depth chart. So I definitely move that direction as well, where I used to be much more, I want like super flex, I want 2 good quarterbacks, I want 2 good running backs, and then I'll rotate receivers. But
yeah, that's my style too. I don't like trading for running backs, and I try to just draft them in the rookie draft, to be honest. I was just having this discussion with Rocky, who, as everyone knows, is on Trade Addicts, because he was trying to trade me in Trade Addicts 7, Saquon Barkley, and I was like, look, the most I will give you is the 110. And he was like, I'm not taking that. And I went, he's been injured. We have no guarantee he's still good. He got outplayed by some like backup running backs on the Giants last year. Like Devontae Booker basically outplayed him. And I told him flat out, I'm like, it is against my dynasty philosophy basically to pay up for running backs, even though I will say every once in a while I do it. I'm not one of those people who like makes a rule for myself and is inflexible.
Sure.
But my general mode of operating is I will probably not trade you very much for a running back.
I will say, and this is I'm with you. I don't trade for running backs, but I actually usually will go RB heavy in a startup just because everyone else is doing the opposite. So I can usually find some good deals because everyone else is trying to load up at wide receiver and then get those, mid-round running backs. They go 0 RB or hero RB, and I get the value. But in a league that Drew and I are in, a 14-teamer, someone offered me Zeke for the 205, and I was like, well, I mean, if you're just giving away a guy who's top 10 every year, like but yeah, I'm with you. I'm not normally I'm usually trying to trade away those guys once they hit about 25 and going, hey, I got a Nick Chubb. Do you want him? Sure you do, because he's still good.
The one time I went running back heavy in a startup, it was a league that Russ created during the pandemic called Dash. That Josh, you're in that league, aren't you? I'm totally blanking. But okay, so that's how tired I am. You're not in that league. I know Bill is in that league. So I went running back heavy in the startup, and I took Leonard Fournette as one of them, which actually ended up working out, but did not work out where I took him. And then the other one, I can't remember, but the summation was both of them after I drafted them lost their starting jobs almost immediately. And I was just like, this is why I never do this. I'm never doing this again. Why would I ever do this to myself?
I love it. I love it. And I love that I said oh, here, by the way, I did look up the Sony Michel contract. A 1-year, $1.75 million contract, a $350,000 signing bonus. So there's no commitment there. But I mean, his battles against Chase Edmonds, who we've seen is really a guy who needs a guy. Like, he needs a running mate in the backfield to unlock his true potential. So I do think that even though the contract says there's no commitment, I'm pretty sure Sony Michel, if he plays like he did last year, will be sticking around in Miami for a year. So
you're telling me for backup running back, that's not Christian Kirk money? I'm shocked.
Well, I mean, if he would have signed with the Jags, it would have been a 5-year, $115 million contract with 75 guaranteed. So I mean,
he'd be backing up James Robinson, who's injured.
Right.
Because the Jags just have money to throw around.
Yeah, he would. I'm not sure if Raquel Armstead is still around, but he'd probably be like 5th on the depth chart behind him. So pulling out the deep cuts on that one. So all right, now that we spoke about Sony Michel probably for like 10 minutes, let's hit the timeline. And I always like to do this when we have a guest on. I like to start the episode by something that our guest tweeted out into the universe.
Yeah.
So this is from our own Bobby Koch at Wrecked Fantasy. I probably just enjoy drafting, but in my second rookie draft, I'm not nearly as grossed out by this class as I thought. Probably just rose-colored glasses, though.
Notice how much hedging I did there? I was like, I kind of like this class, but also like, don't judge me, and I'm going to say that I have rose-colored glasses.
Bobby, the glasses are on. They're fully tinted. This class gets gross real quick. It kind of sneaks up on you, though, because you get like 8 in and you go, okay, like I thought by 8 I would be like crying a little bit, and then by like 11 you're like, whoa, what just happened? I was feeling good about myself, and now I'm at 111 and I'm looking around and like I'm confused. I feel like maybe somebody, maybe I got a little too drunk and ended up somewhere I wasn't supposed to, but this 111 is not a good neighborhood to be in. I cross those tracks.
I respectfully disagree, because I think the second round is actually full of a lot of good value. I think the end of the first is somewhat of a landmine, to be honest, but I think there are a lot of picks in the second round that have the potential to be heavy producers. And also, maybe it's just, again, I drafted these guys, so of course I have to now be high on them because I took them to my team. But a good example is I took Wandale, not Wandale, Wandale, Rocky. I know you asked that question. I'm preempting it. But Wandale Robinson at the 212. And why I think that's great value, and I'm hyping up my own pick here, but I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit, is he's the only wide receiver that the new regime of the Giants actually actively said, we want you on our team. The others, they all inherited. And that's just a recipe for, hey, this guy's probably going to be schemed for touches. That said, he's also like my wide receiver 9, because even though what I just went on this rant about how I'm not taking wide receivers with upside anymore, I went very wide receiver heavy in my trade addicts build. Another guy that I got in the second was Jahan Dotson, and apparently I'm now labeling myself as like the captain of the Jahan Dotson Truther Club, because I've been in many arguments about Jahan Dotson and his value. And the thing that I think, and I said this on the Trade Addicts pod last night too. And by the way, I got him at the 202, and I'm just putting that out there. It's like after the comp pick, so it's really the 203 or whatever. But he put up numbers at Penn State, and what people don't realize about his situation at Penn State and his situation now, they're not that different. He didn't have amazing quarterback play at Penn State, and yet he still put up numbers. The other thing is also, we do this every year, and I said this on the Trade Addicts pod too, but this is my plea to everyone. Do not judge rookies based off their first year situation, because we've seen them change so quickly that if you really think they're talented, they will probably break out anyway. And I'm not saying that Jahan Dotson is like this amazing prospect that's guaranteed to break out, but I believe enough in his talent that I don't care that Carson Wentz is currently his quarterback, because I imagine if he's as bad as all of Twitter seems to think Carson Wentz is, literally, if you go on Twitter and look up Carson Wentz, I guarantee you, probably within your first 5 tweets, you will see a poop emoji or a flaming trash can, because that's how strongly everyone feels about him. Situations change.
Looks like you're out here breaking hearts. Kev Wheeler says he totally wanted Wandale at 301 when you took him at 212.
Well, there's a reason it's called Trade Addicts, Kevin, and you can always offer me something, especially because he's my wide receiver 9. That's my response to that.
That's awesome.
So Bobby will trade him to you for 2 2023 seconds.
Excuse me. Now that I know that he wanted him that badly, the price is at least 1 first.
Oh my God.
I don't blame you. I do the same thing.
Or an aging running back 1.
I'm fine with that. I am fine with that. Yeah, it's very interesting because every rookie draft that I've been in so far, and I still have a few left, Jahan Dotson has gone in the first. So I'm wondering if this is more Twitter maybe trying to drive the price down a little bit, because
I think it's just the people I interact with, or they realize that I like a player, and so they have to say they don't because I like them.
I will be honest with you. I don't know how to feel about Jahan Dotson, and I don't say that about many players because I have a stance, and I could be not saying I'm right, but I always have a stance. Like I really believe in this guy, or I don't believe. And Jahan Dotson is one of these guys where I'm like, yeah, I see a path to him doing really well, but I also see a path where like it just doesn't, and I can't, for some reason, I cannot like form a solid opinion about Jahan Dotson. Now,
that's completely fair. And the one thing that I used to say when I do this more regularly is what I try to do is tell myself a story about how a player will succeed, and then tell myself the opposite story about how he won't. And the thing with Dotson is like, you're right, it's hard to do either or necessarily knowing the current situation. But that said, it's a similar story to like the narrative or story that I've made up for Dotson doing well, right? Is he was drafted in the first round. He succeeded at college with poor quarterback play. Ron Rivera clearly wants him because he was drafted in the first round. Curtis Samuel is coming off an injury and frankly just has not been that good at football for the past few seasons. Terry McLaurin is good, but he's getting older and might also be looking at what's happening in the wide receiver market and going, hey, where's my money? And Washington may be in the situation where it goes, you know what, we're kind of in a rebuild right now because we just traded for this quarterback who has not worked out at pretty much any of his stops. And we're going to have to get another quarterback and we're going to have to build around that guy. And we don't have the money to throw at Terry McLaurin. So there's a path there for Dotson to eventually become the wide receiver one of the Commanders, at least in this best case scenario that I've made up. The other case is he's a first round bust like many others before him, and I'm just totally wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity there too. I mean, they don't have a wide receiver too at this point. Their tight end is injured again. They've got McKissick in the backfield, and we'll see what they do for receiving out there. But I would say there's definitely room for him to have a role this year. So I love getting him early second. I think that 111 spot and then the 102, those are the two picks that I tried the hardest to either trade up or trade out of, because those are a couple of ugly places where you feel like you're pushed into either a gross pick and you got to reach for somebody that maybe doesn't work out still, or or you've got to take somebody else that you're just not thrilled about because it's the smart pick. Your head says one thing, but your heart is screaming at you to go a different direction. So fortunately, I've only had to take the 102 a couple times. I think both times it's been Kenneth Walker based on need. And then 111, I was able to trade back in one of the leagues to 202 and gain a 23rd or 23 second out of it as well. And I feel great about that because at 202, I still got Rachaad White, who I really wanted to take at 111. But I got to add some value and watch other people go and reach for their guys anyways. So those are probably the two picks. But outside of that, I think I'm pretty much with you here, Bobby, that overall, as I go through, I think I've been through maybe 7 or 8 rookie drafts at this point, up until the late second, even to the early third. There seems to be enough value moving around that typically I've found somebody that I'm okay with and that I'm content adding to the roster because there's opportunity. And maybe we need to be a little more patient this year. We're not going to see some of the immediate hits that we've seen in the last couple of years at the skill positions. But I think last year was a good lesson in that for quarterback, right? We all had high hopes for Lawrence, Fields, Lance, and these guys. I'm still excited to see how these guys will pan out. And maybe it is because we're still riding the high of all the drafts that are happening. But I think those are the two spots, the 102, 111 that I'm least excited about having. But other than that, the drafts have been a lot of fun so far.
You summed up some of my thoughts perfectly. And Josh, I will give you an opportunity to talk, I promise. I just really quickly wanted to address this because I had the 102 in Trade Addict 7, and I really needed a running back, so I took Kenneth Walker. But I felt like in my gut and in my soul that I was reaching because I needed a running back. And then I had the 110 and I took Christian Watson. And it was, I don't even particularly love Watson, I think. It was like, okay, if he hits and he's with Aaron Rodgers, people will value that and I will value that and I will regret it if I don't make this pick. It wasn't like an actively like, I want to make this pick. It was just, if I don't make this pick, I will probably regret what will happen if he succeeds, more so than like me being excited about it.
Yeah, so I had the 102 in TA2, and I took Garrett Wilson because he was just my highest rated guy. So I was like, people were talking to me about Kenneth Walker, and I was like, yeah, I see where you're coming from, but we keep talking about an offense. We keep talking about Seattle's offense and how they're like run heavy, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool because you have some dude named Russell Wilson who can throw you out of pretty much any mess you get yourself into. That dude's name is Drew Lock this year. Take that for what it's worth. They're not going to be ahead in a lot of games, which means you got to throw the ball. Now, if you believe that Kenneth Walker is a capable pass catcher, take that Kenneth Walker and ride him. But I don't know. So I just went with Garrett Wilson. He was my guy. He was my highest rated guy, and I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. So we'll see, man. Like this is really a year where you aren't like really confident in anything besides like Brees Hall. Like there's a legitimate argument, not just like a made up argument where like 10 bad things need to happen, but there's like a legitimate argument for pretty much everyone after Brees Hall where you go, this could end badly. Like, and that's what we're rolling with this year. And that's fine. Like, I think we've gotten spoiled because the last, what, 3 draft classes have just been like, ooh, I can get a guy at 108 and I can get a guy at 110. I mean, what was it? 2, 3 years ago, I got in a super flex, I got Justin Herbert at 110 and Justin Jefferson at 112. Like that, we're not going to be doing
So
that.
I will give the slight counter argument here, though, which is just like because everyone feels gross and because there's these kind of flat tiers after Brees Hall, there's also the opportunity that if you hit on one of the guys, especially if you do have one of those later picks, your value from where you drafted them is just going to shoot up the board. And I think I'm not saying that's necessarily going to happen, but we have pretty good indicators that at least someone from this class that's not named Brees Hall will hit at the NFL level. And so if you are one of those lucky people that happen to like draft that person at the 112 or whatever, and they hit and suddenly they're worth 2 or 3 first, great. And that wouldn't happen in most years because in most years, if there was someone who was like consensus amazing, everyone's going to take them much higher than that. So maybe it's a bit of an opportunity. I agree. I'm not saying that I don't still feel somewhat gross about this class, but one thing that made me feel better is I look back at some past draft classes, and I remember in Superflex leagues, maybe you guys didn't because maybe you're smarter than me, but I was taking like Mason Rudolph at the end of the second because I was like, well, maybe he'll become the starting quarterback after Ben or whatever. I feel much more confident and comfortable that some of these wide receivers will break out from the second round than I do that Mason Rudolph would ever become a real thing. So, to use my own example again, Wan'Dale Robinson at the 212 feels a lot better than Mason Rudolph at the 212. And that's just a credit to the fact that this class, while it's quarterback weak, it is pretty deep at wide receiver, at least on paper.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we're gonna bring up this conversation next year when we go, David Bell was that guy, or Jalen Tolbert was that guy, or Wan'Dale Robinson was that guy in the second that everyone took, but no one felt really great about. And then we're like, oh, like this guy's, good. And I'm not saying elite, I'm not saying, top 15, but we're like, oh, this guy was a usable flex every week that I had no issue just plugging in. I got him at the end of the second round or middle of the second round. And I'm thrilled that I got him because everyone just kind of laughed at what was left in the second round. And this was a guy that was starting for my team almost every week. So
You're
yeah,
giving
I mean,
people too much credit, though, because what will happen is like Wan'Dale or David Bell or whatever will hit. And even the people who took them, even because they're just like, I don't know, this feels gross, but whatever, will be like, I loved him the entire time. I was the first one to tell you how amazing he is.
yeah.
The other thing I will say is because I am not that person, while I named myself like the number one Jahan Dotson truther, I will say it was actually Shane Manila who turned me on to Dotson in the first place. So Shane earns that title and I'm like co-captain or vice president or whatever.
I think we can allow that. I think we can make you the vice president of the Jahan Dotson fan club, and that way when people really start coming and asking to pay their membership fees, you're minted in there. Everyone knows that you're the vice president, and they know where to go to for the really important matters.
When people are looking for someone to blame because he doesn't actually break out, I will just retire and it'll be fine.
You'll just change your name to at never liked Jahan Dotson, and we'll go there. But we got this one here from John McGlynn, friend of the show. Damien Pierce was my RB4 in this class, and then he landed in a great spot. Talk about my guy, please. All right, John, we're going to talk about your guy. Bobby, why don't you start us off? How do you feel about Mr. Pierce? Do you like his landing spot? Do you like him as a player? Just give me your general feelings.
What if I don't want to talk about Pierce because in Trade Addict 7 I wanted Pierce and Russ sniped him from me, and so I just have no desire to talk about him whatsoever. But I will just for you, John. So that goes to show that I at least like him a decent amount because I wanted him and felt upset that Russ took him from me. I will say I got a pretty good consolation prize in Trey McBride, especially because Trade Addicts pods or Trade Addicts leagues are 1.7 T premium, and maybe I even got the better pick, especially because Russ almost immediately was like, "I will flip you, David Pierce, for Trey McBride." But I thought he wanted like a plus, and I was just like, "Nah, I'm good. This is fine." But yeah, Houston backfield's wide open. Davis Mills is better than people give him credit for. My boy Brandon Cooks is out there opening up running lanes, and they just added John Mechie, who I'm not the biggest Mechie guy, but from what I'm told, could be like a solid complementary piece to Brandon Cooks. If you think he's going to overtake Brandon Cooks, I mean, I'm very, very biased because Cooks is my boy, but you're just wrong. He's going to be the secondary guy to Cooks. But I kind of like what the Texans are doing, which feels weird to say given all the things they've done in the last few years. But then again, I'm also a Giants fan, so I don't have a lot of room to talk about what other teams have done in the last few years.
Drew, what do you think about Pierce? You like the spot? Do you like the guy? Talk to me.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunity there. I mean, was it Marlon Mack, and I forgot who else is there that he'd have to, beat out this summer and the fall. So there's plenty of opportunity. Played at Florida, good competition. He did well enough there to get drafted here. So, I'll take him. I would prefer to take Rachaad White in most cases. I think Rachaad White's probably my RB3 in this class if I had to force rank them. I like where Cook landed in Buffalo, and that's a bit of a homer pick for me. So Pierce is probably in my RB 5 or 6 range. So I probably don't like him as much as John does. But again, if he's one of those guys that's there later in the second, I'll take a shot.
So I said this pre-draft. After Hall, Walker, and Spiller, whatevs with these running backs, like, is Houston a good spot? I guess the concept of the Houston Texans being a good spot is a thing, but my issue is like, can we trust Houston to not pull Rex Burkhead out of their back pocket or sign like Latavius Murray? Like, I just don't trust the Texans to do smart things, especially when it comes to running back. I mean, let's remember a couple years ago, this was the team that thought David Johnson in a second round pick was all that was necessary to trade away DeAndre Hopkins. So I don't trust them, especially when it comes to the running back position. So could he settle in and be the guy? Absolutely. But I think there's just as good of a chance as, yeah, Kev just mentioned it, Marlon Mack or Rex Burkhead or some other dude that we're not even talking
Royce
about.
Freeman.
Royce Free. Oh yeah, they re-signed Philip Lindsay and he makes a research. Like, there's like
They also have Dare. I can't pronounce his last name. I'm not even
Dare
going to try. I'm sorry.
Gumawale.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I apologize, Dare, if you ever listen. I do try to pronounce all names, but I
Dare
didn't
is
want
a
to
big
butcher it.
fan. He's a big fan of the show, so he'll appreciate the fact that you gave it the old try. But yeah, so like, my thing is like, and Bobby, you made a lot of good points. Like, they have Brandon Cooks. John Mechie probably will overtake Brandon Cooks once they trade Brandon Cooks, but before that, that's not happening. They also have Nico Collins, who I like a little bit. They have Brevin Jordan, who I like a little bit. So they have some like interesting pieces in the pass game, but like, after watching like Rex Burkhead like somehow become the man in Houston, and the DeAndre Hopkins trade, like, I just don't trust them when it comes to running backs. So, hey, but if you like the guy, take the guy. I always, people are like, is it too early to take X player? Do you like the guy? Do you think you can get him at your next pick? If the first answer is yes and the second answer is no, then take your guy. Like, who cares? Like, Damien Pierce might be that dude. He might end up being like the second best running back to come out of this class. And I'm not saying that's happening, but there's a possibility. Anything listen, nobody thought Mac Jones would be the best fantasy rookie last year out of the 5 guys that got taken in the first round. So
John also says you guys are killing me, but I appreciate bringing me back to earth. The one thing I will say to make John feel better is as we were drafting, I would try to just quickly like Twitter search different players' names to see if people had different takes than I did. And some really smart people, and I did say I generally like Pierce, I just don't like him as much as I like Rashad White, for example. Some really smart people on Twitter were in on Damien Pierce, so you're not alone on that.
And look, I called him meh, so I didn't say he was bad. I just said I didn't really care after the first 3 guys. So I did not ever disparage his name. So if he ends up being good,
I'll take a stand. I'm not a fan.
There you go.
I once called Marlon Meh, and Peter Howard, who is a big fan, gave me a lot of flack about that. So if you call a player meh, you're saying they're bad. Don't hedge here, Josh. You're just saying he's bad.
I'm actually saying I don't care about any of these guys after the first 3, and with Isaiah Spiller's draft capital, I don't really care about him either. So
if you're saying you don't care, that's acknowledging that they're bad, because if they weren't bad, you would care.
Right, exactly. I mean, but I can also then turn this around when someone says you said he was bad, and I would say I never said he was bad. I just said I didn't care. So
yeah, this is why I left, by the way, because people hedge way too much, myself included. You just got to stick to what you believe in, man. Come out there and say Damien Pierce, as quoted by Josh on the fantasy timeline at 9:39 Eastern, 5/11/22, is bad.
Well, I will say that I did say there's just as good of a chance of him running that backfield than him getting overtaken by Latavius Murray. So, I mean, I think I've also put a lot of stuff out there that kind of people will know where I stand if I'm talking about Latavius Murray, who currently is doing the same thing that I'm doing, sitting on his couch. So, we got that. So,
there you have it. Josh says Damien Pierce bad. Quoted. Take it to the bank. John, you heard it here first.
That's cool. I'm fine with that because I know if he is bad, no one will come around, and if he is amazing, then I will hear about it and I'll be like, yeah, that's cool. I still thought he was bad. What are you gonna do? Here you go. This next one here, I want to bust this out real quick because we spoke about it, but friend of the show, Dab Network brother, Rocky Trade Addict, at Dynasty FF Addict. What is the correct pronunciation of Wandale Robinson? So yeah, Rocky, it's Wandale. How about that? I just gave it a new pronunciation, and that's how I'm going to say it on this show from now on. No Wandale, no Wandale, Wandale. How about that, Rocky?
I mean, Wandale is what I was saying, and I was just flat out wrong. So it's just Wandale. It's not as cool as I tried to make it out to be. Maybe I thought it had like an accent on the E. I don't really know, but Wandale Robinson, that's it.
It's unfair because Dare Ogunbowale doesn't have an accent on his E, but we make his name 2 syllables.
I'll have to bring that up with my friend who pointed out that Wandale does not have an accent on the E and was making fun of me for pronouncing it that way. But for those who don't know, this was asked on the Trade Addicts pod last night. I kept saying it wrong, and then I looked up pronunciation. Yes, I see you, Kev, trying to drive down his price. It's still a first. I don't care that you called him a midget.
Hey, listen, we can love discount Kadarius Toney as much as we want. That's fine. We can love him, and then when he's not good in a year or two, I'm sure they'll just draft Kadarius Toney 3.0. Eventually it'll be right.
Maybe they'll trade for Rondale.
Or eventually they just could maybe draft a wide receiver that doesn't operate out of the slot primarily. Just putting it out there.
Don't you dare bring that into this conversation right now. We're going to keep drafting these guys until we get it right. That is the way. Just keep making the same mistake until you get it. Hey, Washington's doing it with quarterback.
I will say the one jersey I have is Sterling Shepard, so I'm a little sad because this move basically means this is definitively Shepard's last year here.
I'm a big Sterling Shepard fan. That's coming from someone who roots for the Dallas Cowboys. I've always loved Sterling Shepard. So
yeah, I got that jersey to be different because everyone here has like the Eli jersey or whatever, and I was like, nope, Sterling Shepard, that's my guy.
Hey, respect. I respect that. And in that same league, I traded the 213 for Kenny Golladay, so I got me a little of that vaunted New York Giants offense now. So
that leads into a listener question pretty well. Not to take over your hosting duties, but
nope.
I remember the show sheet. So Sheldon Hand at Dynasty Hoser, Kenny Golladay. Something just tells me he was due for at least one more good season. Anybody else a believer? Not likely. LOL. We saw that you guys saw that on the timeline. It sounds like Josh is still somewhat of a believer because he gave up the
27th best rookie in this class for Kenny Golladay. It's the risk worth taking.
Drew, what are your thoughts? And then I will give my thoughts because I have very distinct thoughts, I think.
I think a lot of it hinges on what you think is going to happen with the quarterback here in New York over the next season or two. I still hold out a fairly large sliver of hope for Daniel Jones. So I think he could definitely support a good year. I think if Golladay can stay healthy, they get to work together a little bit more. I think Galladay's got the size to kind of go and get whatever Jones throws his way, which could help both of them. But overall, I would be pretty shy about making a sizable offer. So I think end of the second feels pretty good to me. If somebody's going to offer that to me, I would probably take a shot there because I think most cases, if I had to guess, Josh, Golladay is probably your wide receiver 5 or 6 on that team.
Something like that. Yeah, I'd have to look at the team, but it's like
so you're taking him as a potential flex, most likely like a bye week fill-in if you need him or something. And then if he turns out to be more, great. You can either flip him or you benefit from if he has a solid year, maybe he helps get you to the playoffs.
This is probably my Giants bias speaking, but I am pretty much out on Golladay because I think his contract is cuttable after next year, first of all. And he'll be somewhat of an advanced age and may come off another down year if the Giants offense doesn't turn it around. And not to be that guy, because I know part of it is injury-based, but the last time he actually had a good season at this point was 2019. Because even in his last season in Detroit, it was a down year because he was injured. And then last year, he didn't come back and play that well, but that Giants O-line was trash. The Giants offense was trash. They're trying to fix their offense, and I'm very excited about what Dabble is trying to do with his coaching scheme. And again, thank you, Drew, for being so gracious as to give us Dabble. I appreciate the loan. And we will, we're not even the New York Giants anymore. We're just the New York Buffalo Bills South, essentially. That said, I think they are going to get Tony involved. They're going to get Wendell involved because they just drafted him. They do need someone on the outside to catch passes too, and that's probably Galladay's role. I just don't see Daniel Jones being that guy to support 3 wide receivers, maybe not even 1, if I'm being honest. I'm hoping he can support 1. I'm even hoping he can support 2. And then if they have a healthy Saquon, he will catch passes out of the backfield too. So it's such a loaded amount of targets to go around. And I just don't see them necessarily scheming Golladay that much. And then if he can be cut and come off essentially 3 down seasons, I just don't see his value necessarily going up. But as a Giants fan, I would love to be absolutely wrong about this take and have him go off for 1,000+ yards and like 10 touchdowns, and the entire offense is just clicking, and somehow we're like accidental playoff contenders or something. And even if that happened, we probably wouldn't go very far, but I'd still be very excited about it.
All right, so I'm gonna bounce around the comments a little bit because there's a couple here I wanna point out. So first of all, Kev Wheeler, Giants are too good to have the draft slot to get their quarterback. Daniel Jones fumbles the Giants to a 9-8 record and just missed the playoffs. All right, Kev, we got to break this down a little bit. The Giants are too good. That's not a sentence that many people have said since Eli was slinging the rock. That's the first one, because let's remember they were 5 this year, right? Because 7 was actually the Chicago pick.
That's right. Yeah, 7 was the Bears pick.
All right, so that's the first one. They did very well in the first round. They got 2 studs on both sides of the ball in the first round. Pained me as a Cowboys fan to see that, but they did well. Rest of their draft is TBD. We're going to put a TBD on that.
They legitimately don't have corners. I'm just putting that out there. Like, their cornerbacks are non-existent.
Daniel Jones fumbles the Giants to a 9-8 record. First of all, Daniel Jones ain't playing 17 games. Let's stop. Ty God is going to come out there, probably win him 3 games, because that's what he does, until like the medical staff accidentally cuts out his ACL or something, and then he's done for the rest of the season. But I'll tell you right now, 9-8 in the NFC East, that could get you the title right there. That could get you the NFC East championship, and then you're in the playoffs. So a lot of very interesting aspects to that statement, but nah, man. I mean, the Giants, maybe they get 1 or 2 more wins, but I can't imagine them jumping from what they have last year. They had 5 wins.
You're asking the wrong person. It's all just blacked out. I'm moving on. It's like the Bill Belichick statement of like, I'm on to whatever the next opponent is.
I'm on to 2022.
Yeah, exactly.
So 2023 is supposed to be the class. And listen, if let's just say you're 10, let's say you're 10 instead of 5. You package that, you package a 2024 first, you can move up. I don't think they're going to be so far back that like an additional first isn't going to get them where they need to be in the range to draft a quarterback. Personally, I could be wrong. But
I will say, Kevin's point is like the most Giants thing to basically happen, where every year, even when they were bad, they were just good enough to screw themselves out of a top pick. Yeah. So it would be a very Giants thing to happen where they were like a middling team, did not make the playoffs, but also moved themselves well out of contention for a top quarterback. And, it's fine. I get it. This is just my life now as a Giants fan. I'm used to it at this point. There's slivers of hope, and I'm trying to hold on to that, but it's eventually just going to be what happens. It'll be like, I don't know, somehow like Geno Smith will circle back around and he'll be our starting quarterback next year.
Man, Geno Smith might be starting in Seattle like week 3, so I don't know if he comes back around, but we'll have to see. Here's another one I like from John McGlynn. Just traded the 306 for Sam Darnold. Tell me something positive.
Sam Darnold looks like the villain from The Incredibles. I don't think that's positive.
I don't think that's positive.
Yeah.
Here's something positive. About, hey, listen, here's something positive. Bacon tastes great. Beer is good. Now, if I have to tell you something positive about what you just did, I can't do that. So I'll just tell you other positive things.
You probably found yourself a future trade partner after this trade. Somebody else want to come back to the well again.
So that's a good one. Yeah, they'll want to come back because you have established that you are a willing trade partner.
Right.
And they probably like the value that they got from you. And so now you have, it's just a relationship builder. Sometimes you got to lose one to win one.
True. Great silver lining. See, this is why you are the co-host with the most, because
that's what I'm here for.
I would not have thought of that. I just was telling him some food and drink related positives that I could come up. Uh, Kev, I can't argue with you on this. Bacon on pizza is the 101. Absolutely. I'll throw some sausage on there and some pepperoni and just chow down. So
The
there
whole
you go.
pig.
There's a positive. Throw some bacon on your pizza and just enjoy your life. Just that will make your trade feel better. Bacon on pizza. If you're like, oh man, this trade maybe not so much. Eat some bacon on pizza and you'll be like, you know what? Everything is going to be all right. And it will be. And it will be. Sam Darnold will be in the NFL. So that's always good for fantasy. You need people in the NFL on your team, and he's there.
I have another positive spin, just piggybacking off what Josh said. You could have used that pick on someone who would undrafted, and they might be cut from a roster. So you at least have someone who's on a roster, because possibly you're not a great drafter, and so you just needed to guarantee yourself someone who has a roster spot.
Very true. And 306 this year could be a guy who gets cut like week 2 of the preseason. So there you go. There you go. We got you. We got you, John. We got you, John. So I actually got this sent to me right before we went on the air, so to speak. So I want to read this. This is from the ogre at No Good Nick. Is this a good trade? So he received Travis Etienne and a 2023 third, and he gave up Mark Andrews. He says, I also have Hawkinson, so he would slide into my tight end spot. Listen, this is kind of like with John. Um, Bacon is good. Um, cold beer is great. Um, Drew is a big whiskey and bourbon guy. So if that's your cup of tea, hit Drew up. He will give you some recommendations. What else? You know what? A great burger on the grill. Do that up and then put the bacon on top of that. Maybe you hit yourself with a slice of like cheddar. Maybe if you want to get wild, do a little brie on there. But yeah, about that, man, Mark Andrews is like one of those damn near untouchables for me. Nobody's ever truly untouchable, but man, you have to just make me go, oh man, this is an instant accept and make me smash that button in order to get Mark Andrews. I think I only have one share of him. So unfortunately, I have not been blessed. And I am at this point not going out and trying to buy him because I would probably have to give up half my team to do so. But I don't care if this is tight end premium, not tight end premium, 2 tight ends, no tight end. I don't care.
If
Mark
I
Andrews.
may, Josh, maybe, and I need to look up their name again. I apologize. So maybe the ogre at No Good Nick on Twitter just beats their league so bad continually all the time that they felt really bad about it. And so they needed to trade away the tight end who just had a wide receiver who was taking targets away from him, traded away to another team. You know, Hollywood Brown was gone, and he's like, no, if I keep Mark Andrews, I'm just going to win. And I don't like to win by that much. It's just unfair to the rest of the league. It doesn't feel good to beat people when they're not playing up to the competition. You know, every week he's winning by 200 points. So he's like, hey, let me make a trade. The league won't fall apart because I'm continually beating them by 200 points, and it'll be good. Maybe he's just a humanitarian that way.
Bobby, you just gave me a business idea because I hear this from people that I speak to and people on the Twitter. Um, I feel bad because my team was so well built that I just crush. I lose like 1 or 2 games a season. I win every other championship. It's dominance. Maybe I should throw my team into a dispersal, or maybe I should make trades like this to give away my wealth a little bit. I think for $5 a season, you give me $5. And when you're starting to feel like, "Ah, maybe I should make this bad trade, I'm just gonna be your hype man. I'm going to tell you how great your team is, how good you should feel about yourself in the moment. I'll call you, I'll text, I'll hit you up in the DM, whatever you like, whatever is best for you. And I'll just be like, look how good this team is. Why would you ever want to break this team up? You got Mark Andrews, you got TJ Hawkinson, you got a bunch of other guys that are just dominant. You probably have like Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. You're probably repping like Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert at quarterback if this is a super flex. Your running backs are probably like Antonio Gibson and Jonathan Taylor, and you probably got like two other guys in there that are like top 15. Your team is great. Don't ever trade this away. $5 a season. All you people that are so upset about your amazing teams, give me $5 a season. I'll just hype you up when you're feeling like you have to throw away players to help your league mates out.
I will say, all jokes aside, this is not a trade. If it wasn't clear, this is not a trade I'd be making either. I'm not trying to be mean about it. It's just, you're talking about a running back who's coming off a foot injury, which is always a little scary, although I am clearly not a doctor, and a second round pick, which, while we were all just talking about the fact that we're excited for the seconds this year, there's no guarantee they'll actually hit. And then Mark Andrews, who I alluded to, lost Hollywood Brown from his team and is basically the only one who can really catch passes for Lamar Jackson now. So little light on the value there. I hope that you are happy with the trade, as I hope everyone is happy with their trades. But personally, I am not a fan of it. And I wish you the best of luck going forward.
Yeah, I was reading this in the first line. I thought at first it was ETN in the second pick this year. I was like, oh, that's okay. You get ETN in the 102, and I could see, last week I talked Bill through a trade where I think he gave up the 102 or the 103 and a couple pieces to get Andrews. And then, reading the bottom line, that was definitely, that's not enough for a guy like Andrews in any format. But again, you never know. It's one of those things that's a crazy, crazy game. I've seen some crazy lopsided trades go through, and a year later or mid-season, it looks very different than when you made the trade. So, but yeah, hopefully this is, hopefully this was fun for you. Hopefully it works out in some way. I think a lot of us are rooting for ETN. I'm definitely skeptical coming off of a foot injury for a running back, but I know a lot of people, it's funny to see the wide range of picks this year that people were willing to give for ETN. Some people saying they'd give up as high as like the 103, 140 at ETN on their team, which I'm not in that range, but you got people that have that much of value on ETN. So, but yeah, I think we're 3 for 3. We would probably not do this if it was offered to us.
And honestly, Drew, if this was Travis Etienne in the 102, still not doing it. Like that, that's how highly I think of Mark Andrews, where it's just like, barring injury, this dude is set up to be what, a top 2 tight end?
Absolute monster.
Like the only person that we can realistically talk about keeping him at a tight end 1 is Travis Kelce. That's it. Like that's the only person that we can realistically talk about.
There's an argument to be made for Kyle Pitts. I'm not that guy to make that argument personally, but there is an argument to be made for Kyle Pitts. For me, though, and I say this because I just had this conversation in one of my league chats. For me, it's literally just Mark Andrews and then the field. Like Mark Andrews is my clear-cut tight end 1 because he has both age on his side, he has target volume on his side, he has already proven production on his side. He literally has everything you want to see for Dynasty for a piece that you're going to build around for X number of years. And we also know that, like, even if you're like, oh, well, Mark Andrews is already like 25 or 26 or however old he's going to be, tight ends age very differently than running backs. 25 for a running back, you are walking around with your walker. Tight end, you are just getting started with your career, and most of them haven't even broken out yet at this point.
I mean, what's Travis Kelce going to be, 33 this year?
Something like that.
And I just said Travis Kelce is the only person that I think could realistically have an argument to keep Mark Andrews at a tight end 1, and we're talking about that's 8 years away for Mark Andrews. And
The thing I will say for Pitts, just to give like the Pitts argument, is he just had 110 targets as a rookie. They don't have anyone else really. Well, they have Drake London now, but Calvin Ridley is still not back. Pitts did put up 1,000 yards as a rookie, which is pretty good. If I will say this for Pitts, he had one touchdown his entire rookie season. If he had any more touchdowns and put up the rest of the numbers that he did, we would be talking about him very, very differently. I think it's just a matter of he didn't score in the red zone, and so we're not talking about him as this like amazing guy. But I can very easily see the argument of Pitts versus Andrews even. But as I said, I am clearly Team Andrews. But when someone tells me that Pitts is their tight end one, I'm not like, oh my God, you're crazy.
Yeah, and I think the only thing and by the way, I'm gonna start this by saying I love Kyle Pitts. I think the only thing that limits him is the fact that the quarterback is either Marcus Mariota or Desmond Ritter. And while I think Marcus Mariota is a fine quarterback, like hey, it's cool to have him as your starting quarterback. And I know everyone's gonna go, Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan's actually like he's above Marcus Mariota. Like I'm not saying he is a QB1, but he's above Marcus Mariota in the skills department. I think that's the only thing that limits him, and the fact that Bobby, you mentioned it, there's nobody else there. It's we're going to talk about Olamide Zaccheaus, and
I mean, Drake London, I think, will be a good wide receiver, but
we differ on that, but that's fine. That's what makes the world go round. The differences make the world go round. But that is somebody, by the way, that you can mark me down at 10:03 on the 129th episode of the fantasy timeline, and actually other episodes previous to this. I am not a Drake London guy, and that's fine. All of the smart people with the numbers and the this and the that have told me why I'm wrong, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But Rocky will always say to me, dude, you were right about Jalen Reagor when everybody loved Jalen Reagor. And I'm like, listen, I don't ever take the victory laps because it's just not fun when you do your own victory lap. It's more fun when someone goes, hey man, you were actually right about that. So every time Rocky says it, I feel good inside. But yeah, Drake London just I am not seeing what the very smart people are seeing. And I'll probably be wrong. And I'm cool with that. But for now, it's Kyle Pitts and some other guys catching the ball. And then, the running back situation is, it depends on how much you like Cordarrelle Patterson and then Tyler Algier and all that stuff. But since we were talking about good old KP, Kyle Pitts, why don't we jump to Tommy Blair at FF Tommy B? What is the most that you would pay for Kyle Pitts? And this is such an interesting question because I loved Kyle Pitts. So I have quite a few shares of KP. And people have been hitting me up with like the most terrible trade offers for him. Like you would have thought that he like was arrested for a crime or got into a major car accident with some, and I'm like, did I miss something? Every time I get a deal like that, I check the internet. I go to Google and I type the guy's name in because I'm like, well, yeah, if he just got arrested on like, drug possession, if he pulled like a Nate Newton and he had like a trunk full of drugs, all right, like maybe it's time to get out. But every time I check Google, it's just like, nope, Kyle Pitts is being his awesome self. So if you realistically were trying to get Kyle Pitts, what would you two very intelligent men, Drew, we'll start with you. What would you be willing to give up to get yourself some Kyle Pitts?
Not as much as I would give for Mark Andrews.
And
I would say if I thought I had, if I had been doing the dynasty game right, and I've got a couple of firsts next year in 2023 in a class that everybody is excited about, and I thought, maybe one of them is going to be later because one of them is mine because I'm doing this right. as long as I didn't think I was going to end up with a top 3 pick or something like that, I'd probably give 2 of my 23 firsts. I'd offer that up and see if that would be enough to get Pitts off of the other manager, especially if they're looking at, maybe this is one of their good picks from last year and they need to continue to rebuild. But that's probably about as far as I'd go with picks. As far as player wise, I probably am a little more flexible with players. So depending on what people's values are, I think that's where you could get a little bit more creative and have some fun with trying to make some moves. But I would be looking to give, maybe now figure out what I would take with Deshaun Watson to get there. If I've got Watson on my team, if I feel pretty good at quarterback, if you don't want to take on that risk and figure out, how many games is he going to miss over the next couple of years. But as far as picks go, which is kind of universal, I'd say a couple of 23 firsts is where I'd land.
All right, Bobby, what about you? What are you giving up to get Kyle Pitts?
So my answer is going to be complicated because my first answer is nothing. And I say nothing because I think whoever owns Kyle Pitts probably values him already more than I do. That said, I totally agree that if I could get him for 2 firsts, I think that's a pretty solid price for him. Given that I just said that I could make the argument for him to be the tight end 1, and he's just a rookie. If we're talking like a Trade Addicts 1.75 T premium, I don't know that 1.5 really moves the needle for me that much, but I have seen the difference in the 1.75 leagues. I maybe bump that up to like 2 firsts and an additional second or something like that. But honestly, most of the people, and maybe this is just because I'm very good friends with John Bosch, but whenever I talk about like Kyle Pitts, it's basically like it's your firstborns, like entire team roster, plus you pay my league fees for the next 100 years, and then you can get Kyle Pitts. And I'm just like, cool, so I'm never going to match your price for Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, so I think I'm closer to the John Bosch mindset. I just, what would it take? All that pops into my head is the Thanos meme where it's just like everything, and that's
He's
what it
used
is.
that one before. I've seen him post screenshots, by the way, of trading basically like half of a roster of good players for Kyle Pitts and being like, what did it take? And it's literally the Thanos meme, everything.
Yeah, and because here's my thing. We just talked about Kyle Pitts, or excuse me, Mark Andrews being 25 and Travis Kelce being 33 in that 8 years. Like, yeah, a lot of people go, well, dynasty leagues last like 3 to 5 years and then they blow up. Cool. I try not to be in those leagues. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I try to be in leagues that are, I'm like, hey, they're gonna be here for a while. I'm gonna be here for a while. Let's have some fun. And Bobby made the argument, like, hey, we could be talking about Kyle Pitts at tight end 1. Like, you obviously were still saying like Mark Andrews is that dude, but we can make that argument for Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts is younger, and Kyle Pitts is on a team with no other receiving options. So like, that sounds really good to me at a position where, once you get past like tight end 7, like, cool, just throw a dart. Like, they're all the same guy at that point, you know. And especially, Bob, you mentioned it in like a 1.75, and I have Pitts and TA too. So maybe that's another reason why I'm like, that 1.75 is just like cool. He's like a a top 15 wide receiver in that format. Like, cool. So just give me another one of those on top of what I already have, and I'm cool. I'm fine with it. Let's roll. So yeah, like it'll take a lot for me to. I would have to look at a trade and just be like, oh, this is an instant accept for me to trade Kyle Pitts. So yeah, it's gonna be an everything from me, Tommy. But from the other guys, they're talking about 223 first, maybe in a TA league where it's 1.75 tight end premium. Maybe you throw an extra second, especially if that second looks like it's gonna be a higher second. But yeah, and I would
Can
be
I ask a
curious.
quick question?
Yeah.
Drew, do you roster any Kyle Pitts?
Yes.
Okay. I was curious if you didn't because I don't. And I was wondering essentially if the price for people who
Hmm.
don't roster him is lower than the people who do because we're like, yeah, well, I don't roster him, so I don't value him quite as highly. But it sounds like maybe Josh is just very high. And
I
I
think
get
there's
it.
some truth to that in general, right? I mean, you were talking about that earlier about some of the guys you picked in this year's rookie drafts. There's always that perception of when you have them versus when you don't. I've only got them in, I think, one or two places, so I certainly don't have as much as Josh does. So I don't know if that means it would take more or less to get them off my team. But yeah, if I reverse that and think about what would it take, I would definitely want probably two of those 23 first, and then some sort of a replacement player with it. So if you're going to give me somebody that's in that, maybe like a Darren Waller, Goddard, maybe as low as like I like Noah Fant still for long term. So somebody else who's young and athletic. So that would be in that range where I'd at least have to think about it. Probably wouldn't smash it right away when I saw it, but that'd be the range. So there's definitely some disparity between what I would be willing to give up versus what I'd want to get to move him.
And Drew, I think I say this all the time, and people like to nitpick on this, but I think this happens for every player. I know we like to think like, oh, if I say that I would pay two first, I would sell for two. Like, no, like I'm always trying to get more when I'm selling a guy as opposed to when I'm buying. It's just the way we do things. It's what is your max point when you're trying to buy the guy?
So not to get too nerdy, but this is a great topic to lead into. So when I was in grad school, I took a bunch of marketing classes because I thought I was going to become a marketer. Spoiler alert, I did not become a marketer, but I do work with marketing technology. Um, the reason I bring it up though is there are psychological studies that were conducted where they gave one group, it was like 5 chocolate bars or whatever, and another group a mug, and they were the same exact value in monetary value. And when they asked them, would you trade your 5 chocolate bars for this mug, and told them straight up, same monetary value, like these people didn't have a preference for chocolate, whatever. It was all just like you had to try to maximize your money. They were like, no, I value my chocolate bars more. And when they tried to get to essentially the summation is when you get down to the brass tacks, psychologically, we value what we already have more than the thing that we don't have. And so you have to pay essentially a little bit extra to get the thing we have, even if you're giving up something of equal value. And like logically, we should do it. Emotionally, we just make this attachment to the thing that we already have. And so you have to like pay essentially that emotional tax price. And that same thing happens in Dynasty, to Drew's point. Like, I don't know that I would have called myself like a Rashad White guy before I drafted him in the second round, but as soon as I did, I was like, Leonard Fournette is toast.
And yeah, we do that because I said earlier I'm a Garrett Wilson guy. And I'm like, have you seen what the Jets have done? They've bolstered that line, and now they have Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. They got CJ Uzama at tight end, Brees Hall. Like, you know, Zach Wilson is going to take the next step. Look at everything around him. And like when you like a guy and then like you say, you draft a bunch of a person and you have him on your rosters, you're like, yeah, like because in your mind you're like, well, I couldn't have possibly like messed this up. I couldn't possibly have gotten, insert name a guy. It doesn't have to be Garrett Wilson. It can be your favorite guy, and I couldn't have possibly gotten this wrong.
The
And
caveat
then
is unless you're Drew and given the opportunity to pick a new draft pick.
right there you go. Drew liked the guy for about 15 minutes and then said, maybe I went wrong here. Yeah, and Bobby, it's funny you mentioned that because I have a lot of friends who are real estate agents, and we see that with houses. You look at your house and you go, my house is worth, $350,000. And a real estate agent comes in and goes, look, like realistically, it's probably more like 295. And you go, but I redid the kitchen and I redid the bathroom. And they're like, yeah, like I walked around the house, like I saw all that, but it's 295. And they talk about this all the time. Anytime I hang out with them, they're like, people don't understand, like, just because you put in what you consider to be an amazing bathroom or an awesome kitchen, or you know, built a walk-in closet in the bedroom, like, you put a bunch of value on that because you did that. Like, you either did it yourself or you paid someone to do it, and you think it adds all this value. But in reality, like, what most other people are going to see is what I'm telling you they're going to see, because they've seen comps and they've seen other things. Like, they know how to fairly accurately price a house. So
It's
it's like,
also just that emotional attachment. People
yeah.
are naturally emotionally attached to their house, and like most people, I'm not saying everyone, have good memories associated with living in
Mhm.
their house. And so they go, "Oh, I have," they don't think about this from like a, this is getting very Freudian, but they don't think of it on like a conscious level. But
Right.
subconsciously, it's like, I have good memories here. So that makes it more valuable because I have
Yeah.
good memories here. And that this bathroom that we built, I that
Right.
adds value because somewhere down these steps, my son took his first steps, and that
Yep.
means this other family will value that as much. It's the same thing with like dynasty players. I've had this guy, I've said it earlier, and it might have been in the pre show. Brandon Cooks was the first ever rookie draft pick that I took in Dynasty. To this day, Brandon Cooks is my boy, and it has served me well because Brandon Cooks has basically never failed to get over 1,000 yards, and I will stand by my boy. But if I have him on my roster, you have to pay me more than market value because he is my boy, and I refuse to let him go for anything less than above market value, basically. Because to me, Brandon Cooks will never fail to put up 1,000 yards until he does. And I'm just putting that out there. He will never. I mean, I know it's happened because he like got injured, but every time he's been traded or whatever, people are like, "No, this is the year where it stops." It
Mhm.
hasn't stopped yet. This is not me trying, and I'm proving my own point. I am emotionally invested in Brandon Cook's career, and so therefore you have to pay the emotional tax to get him if you want him from me in Dynasty.
And I've learned something today. I can never be in a league with Bobby, because one of us would have Brandon Cooks, and if it wasn't me, I would just look at Bobby's roster like once a week and just look at Brandon Cooks and be like, "You will never be mine," and it would hurt me. It would pain me deeply.
When
And
I when
Bobby
I
would
see
send you a
him,
trade offer every week. I'll give you one Brandon Cooks for one Kyle Pitts.
it would actually just be, I'd probably be a little nicer. I'd be like, here's one Brandon Cooks for one like 23 first. Same thing with Wandale and Kev earlier. It's just that's the price. As soon as I know you want them, price is going up.
And I would, my head and my heart would fight for about 30 seconds until my head won and was like, "No, you can't do this to your team." But you, like, my heart would be like, "But you really want it."
So, really quick side story. In Trade Addict 7, but right before the draft, I had a ton of picks, and Russ sent me an offer for like the 102, 110, 112, and I think it was also 107 or 19. And it was Kyle Murray. I was also giving up Trey Lance in this deal, by the way, but it's Kyle Murray, Brandon Cooks, Darnell Mooney, and I forget one other thing. And it was basically like, it's like Russ looked at all the players that I've been, and smart, that I've been very vocal about liking, and was like, here, I will offer these to you, but for way above what they should actually probably be valued at. And there was a part of me that was like, I need to make this trade because this is one of the few rosters where I don't have Brandon Cooks on my roster, and I will pay this to get Brandon Cooks because he is my boy. And I also love Darnell Mooney, and I value him as a first, even if no one else does, damn it. So it's fine. And then I talked to like other people on Twitter, and they were basically like, no, Bobby, do not do this. This is not a smart move. And I was like, but I'm trapped in a glass case of emotion because Brandon Cooks is not on my roster right now.
Yeah, I forgot who sent me the trade. It was in TA2 though. It was, I would give up Derek Carr and a 23 first, and this is a rebuild, for like Tua and like the 108 or the 109. And I literally responded and I said, "I'm giving up the two best pieces in this trade. I don't understand why you think I would do this." I just said that, but apparently, I think someone listened to the show and maybe thought that I was I was the Tua lover. Drew loves Tua. So maybe they listened to the show and they got it mixed up and thought that I would overpay for Tua, but I was like, no, this will not happen. Drew gets embarrassed every time I say he loves Tua, but he's a big fan.
That's because he's a Bills fan, and like they're supposed to be talking about how Tua underthrew that ball to Tyreek Hill, even though it's camp and no one really cares.
Right. Yeah, that was an interesting bet that we made. I think Drew felt very good about Tyreek Hill coming into the fold after the bet was made. And then he saw that video and maybe didn't feel that much better after he saw that Tua can't get him the ball deep. So that'll be fun to watch as the season goes on. But
one, I have a question and then also a statement. So I'll go with the statement first. The statement is I learned last night that I don't like Tua as much as I thought I did because I was pressed on it basically. In one of my league chats, I was always the one defending Tua while one of my league mates, and he actually wanted me to identify him. So his name is Bill Duviel. He has written at a few places before. He's like, used to be Rotodubs. I don't know what he is these days, but he legitimately just calls Tua straight up butt cheeks. That's like his name for Tua. And I would always be the one defending Tua. And part of it was also that I did have Tua on my roster. I shipped him out in a trade that involved like Alvin Kamara and Tua for, I think it was Russell Wilson and Aaron Jones and some other piece. And I was kind of weak at quarterback and was like, Russell Wilson, for those who don't know, is probably like my number one quarterback love. And I was just like, I want to be invested in him in Denver, so why not? But last night on Trade Addicts, we were talking about a trade of Lamar Jackson for Tua, a 23 first and a 24 first. And I told the league about this, and I was like, I had to be on the Lamar side because you're just taking on so much risk with the Tua side. If Tua bust and the picks don't hit, you gave up Lamar for basically nothing. And they were all like, no, that, like, even the guy who called Tua butt cheeks was like, I would take the Tua and the pick side. And I was like, what is happening here? You were the guy that I've been fighting with for a year plus about how bad Tua is. And suddenly I'm the guy who is anti-Tua. And I told him, I'm like, I don't think you're allowed to call him butt cheeks anymore, man. Like, just no. But apparently he's still calling him butt cheeks or whatever else he's calling him. So there you go, Bill.
I'm with you though, Bobby. I think in that trade scenario, I'm taking Lamar too, because I almost feel like Tua is like, this is like the 1 year prove it deal for Tua. They're like, all right, like we got you weapons, like put up or shut up. Because I mean, Brian Flores was pretty much fired for the fact that he was like, can we get Deshaun Watson in here and ship Tua anywhere else? And the GM was like, no, I drafted this guy. This is my guy. We're going to roll with him. And Brian Flores was like, all right, maybe that's who you're actually talking to in your league chat is Brian Flores. Because I'm sure he probably called him a couple times while watching him play. So
by all reports, he said something to Tua's face that Tua did not take well to. So probably was just like,
he probably was like, "Your butt cheeks."
Yeah, stop playing like your butt cheeks.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like
the question though, by the way, while we're on the subject, was I don't know if I know what the terms of your bet was.
Oh, so I took Trevor Lawrence. He took Tua final season fantasy point total. So just who scores more. And
for this upcoming season or
this upcoming season, yeah.
Nice. All right. I actually don't know where I fall on that. So I mentioned this last night on Trade Addicts Pod too. And so I apparently will just repeat things that I said last night repeatedly, which is fine. But as you guys know, in the Cool Kids Club, J Mike recently asked us about a trade and then was like, no thoughts, just gut instincts. And I said, like, my gut hesitated. So my gut hesitated there. But then ultimately it leaned to the Tua side, which I'm surprised about. So maybe I still am a Tua truther and I just don't recognize it. But also just like, I do really like Christian Kirk, but he's not like a wide receiver number one. And Tua does have Tyreek now, and he does have Waddle. and he has weapons around him. But I am making the same, I hear it out loud in real time. I am making the same argument about Tua right now that I used to yell at people for making about Drew Lock. And I said this also last night on the Trade Addicts pod, where I was like, I was never convinced with Drew Lock. I always thought he was bad. I flat out said, and you can quote me on this, that Drew Lock is trash and flaming pile of garbage. And if you surround a flaming pile of garbage with weapons, it's still a flaming pile of garbage surrounded by weapons. Tua is not that, but if in the rare event that he is butt cheeks, surrounding butt cheeks with weapons does not make him any less of butt cheeks.
So, and this was the basis of my Trevor Lawrence argument, and I've said this, I've coined this phrase. He's the first player in NFL history that had to be the starting quarterback and the head coach in the same season. No player has ever had to do that before. So, I mean, we look at Trevor Lawrence and we're like, and I hear people now, Trevor Lawrence, he's done. Like, he had one bad year and we can't put any faith in him anymore. And my thing is like, okay, maybe we stop calling him the best thing since Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning or whatever, and that's fine. I thought that was kind of a lot to begin with, but like Doug Peterson is a good NFL coach. He's won a Super Bowl with a team that wasn't exactly elite. Um, they've got him weapons. The price point for those weapons is suspicious, but they're weapons. I mean, it's a much better upgrade than Laquan Treadwell and Jamal Agnew and the stuff that was getting thrown out there for several weeks during last season. Um, and I think he's just way more talented than Tua,
So
Mr. Buttcheeks.
here's the thing. Yeah, Mr. Buttcheeks. Here's the
Yeah.
thing. I recognize that it's a different game, and a lot of these rookie quarterbacks are producing right away. But imagine like if we had given up, and this is what I say all the time, and it's all usually I use it as a defense of rookie quarterbacks that I like, and I don't use it as a defense of rookie quarterbacks that I don't like. But
Fair.
imagine basically if we had said the same thing about like pretty much any of these Hall of Fame quarterbacks, because when almost all of them started, at least initially, their rookie seasons were pretty rough.
Yeah.
You mentioned even Peyton. If I recall, didn't Peyton like break the interception record?
Yep.
So if we've given up on Peyton Manning because of his rookie season, and I'm not saying like Lawrence is going to have a
Right.
Peyton Manning type career, but if we had done that, just imagine how foolish you would feel right now.
Mhm.
And I get it. It's a different game. It's more favorable to the quarterbacks. It's easier to come in and pass right away, and it's more of a passing game. Blah 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 blah. This is my number one. I don't know if you call it pet peeve or what you want to call it with the dynasty community, with the fantasy community, or whatever. We are not patient, and we're playing a game that requires patience. And I said this last night on Trade Addicts too, but this is the number one edge that is still exploitable within Dynasty and I know people have their own opinions of it. This is my number one exploitable edge. Buying picks that are a few years out because people think the league will fold or whatever, or they're just not patient. You can get a ton of value that way because people will undersell in them because they're like, oh, I don't care. I'll figure it out later. And I even heard Rocky and Russ basically say that last night. I was like, great. I will send you some offers for your picks later tonight when you figure it out. And in 2 years, I will be making those picks and be very happy with the value that I got. And I get it. Time is money, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. This is an edge that is very, very exploitable. And by the way, when you exploit it, you can usually build like a actual dynasty, which is the whole point of the game, and win multiple years in a row. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I have done this exact plan and have done that in a couple leagues where I have won back-to-back championships by essentially just being patient.
Love that.
Well, yeah, and I totally agree. Because think about 2 years ago, in 21, that we loved that draft. But imagine if you were trading, your say your Tyreek Hill for 22023 first. All right, yeah, oh, it's 2023. Who cares, man? We still have this draft that we're doing and a 2022 draft, and then we're gonna work. But now you're like sitting on those 223s, and it's like, even if it's 11 and 12, people are like 2023 first. Like we whisper it, we don't even say it out loud because we just hold it in such high esteem that we can't even say it out loud. We have to whisper 2020.
Are either of you SpongeBob fans? Because when you were saying that, my only thought was like, two gold doubloons, and that will not make sense if you've never watched SpongeBob.
I'm not, unfortunately, not a SpongeBob guy, so
Oh man,
but
you gotta watch the episode two
I,
gold
I will
doubloons.
find that episode and watch it. But and that's the thing, and I hear people say that all the time. And I mean, right now, no one is really offering them up. But if someone is going to give me a 24 first for someone that I'm like, oh, this guy is maybe his last season, or maybe he's got one more season after that, and like kind of like, I mean, I bought Zeke. I mentioned it earlier for a 205, but if I had Zeke and someone tomorrow was like, I will give you a 24 first because it's 2 drafts away, like cool, like I'll do that because Zeke, I don't know if he's going to be around in 2024. And even if he's in the league kicking around somewhere, he's not going to be the Zeke that we've talked about, the last 3 seasons, maybe before last season. He's not going to be that guy. So, like, cool, I'll take the 24 first. I'll sit on it for a couple of years. And here's the crazy part. And people don't mention this when they give that argument. You can trade that pick. Like it's fine. Like it doesn't have to, you don't have to make it. So
Yeah, that's the other thing we talked about. You don't necessarily have to wait, but the one caveat I will add is the longer you can wait until the closer you are on the clock, the better off you will be in terms of getting value back for the pick. It's a proven thing. I mean, I get it. People like to make trades. I like to make trades, but if you can wait as close as you can until people are like, oh man, I have to have, Treylon Burks, as they talked about with Russ. People will trade in and they will overpay for it. The one thing I have found people start to come around on is the idea that first are first, basically, no matter what draft class they are in. And so there's people are starting to come around on them. There's slightly less of an edge of buying out future first. Future seconds, though, people still do not care whatsoever. And you can get them. You can be like, yeah, I just did this. You can be like, I'll give you a third in this class for like a second 2 years out, and they're like, yeah, man, great. Like,
cool.
All right, cool.
Yeah. And again, if you did that last year, you're sitting on 23 seconds now. And even though we can say 23 seconds out loud, it's not, we don't have to whisper.
It's not two gold doubloons, which I will post the.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm going to be watching that after we sign off. But now, I mean, even 23 seconds, we're like, man, like there's going to be guys in the second that we're going to love, and we're going to be, and you have those. And I mean, I got those thrown into so many deals to move down in the first this year. Like, hey, let me move down 2 spots and you give me a 23 second. I don't even want a 22 second. You have those. Give me a 23 second. And a lot of people were like, yeah, sure, 23 second. Who cares? And then in November, we're going to start hearing about it. People are going to be out of the race. They're going to be looking for, and they're going to be like, oh man, there's like 4 guys, 5 guys, 6 guys that I'm going to love in the second. Well, I feel for you because I have your second round pick now, and you are going to either have to trade for something, or you're going to have to watch from the sidelines and watch me make a bunch of 2023 second round picks because I got a bunch. So yeah, I totally agree.
Let's keep hyping up the 23 seconds only because I have 5 or 6 of them in Trade Addict 7 already. So, the more we talk about them, the price is now just going up even more. Earlier I said Wandale was a first. Now my 23 seconds are all like 2 firsts, 3 firsts, 4 firsts.
I'm sorry. I think you mispronounced his name. Wandale, I think is what you meant to say. I got your back, Bobby. We take care of our guests here. We'll pronounce Wandale however we please, okay? However we damn well please, Rocky, and that's that's that. So listen, we're at an hour and a half. I mean, honestly, if we could talk another hour and a half, and that would be cool. But people got to get to sleep. We all got jobs. We all have people that we need to be responsible for and report to. So uh, let's wrap it up here. Bobby, man, appreciate you coming on. It's so much fun. We had, like I said, we had a great time on the DAP draft show.
Mhm.
And
So
hey,
good.
if you're like, hey, I didn't get to check that out, then just hop on YouTube. Just do the DAP network, search us, find that draft show, and just watch us, kind of suffer through the first round because the first round was not a lot of fantasy goodness in that first round. Watch that though; it was still a good time. And then click on for day two. That's when we got our David Bells, our Wandale Robinsons, Brees Hall, Kenneth Walker. That's when we started really coming into our own and really doing the fantasy thing. But Bobby, on your way out, just remind everybody where they can find you. So if they want to tap into your wealth of knowledge, they can do so.
Sure. And I will say I have noticed a correlation. I've now done 2 podcasts in 2 nights, and I had not been getting asked fantasy advice for a while, which I was totally fine with. And then like people were like, "Oh, I see him being tweeted out about being on these podcasts. Let's ask him questions." And I was like, "All right, I guess I can deal with this again." So you can find me at Rec Fantasy. Really quick plug. I am part of the Fantasy Cares Eliminators because for whatever reason, John Bosch decided that I'm still a celebrity and I can't say no to charity, so I do it. Please sign up for my Fantasy Cares Eliminator as well as others, but particularly mine, because if I can't fill one, I will feel very bad about myself and my ego will take a huge hit. I don't know. Maybe you think after talking about how great I did in this Trade Addict 7 draft that I just had that I need the hit, and you might be right, but please sign up anyway. And once again, appreciate you guys having me on the show. It's always a fun time. I said it during the draft show, this is what I miss the most. And I also appreciate you sucking up to your new boss because I definitely own the network.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just good business. I mean, like I said, we want to firmly cement our spot as the C show on the network. So feel like sucking up to the boss will do that. Um, Listen, Bobby, as soon as I figure out where I can actually do that signing up thing, I'm gonna sign up for yours because the I will say we had our own last year. Actually, we've had our own the last 2 years, and we usually get knocked out in the first like 2 or 3 weeks because we put this in quotes, we sell our picks. We pretty much tell people if they donate to charities that mean something to them, and just kind of show us the receipt. We don't care what the amount is. That's not the point. Point is just donating. Um, but if we hit certain milestones, we sell off our picks. So we will allow someone else who donated to make a pick on our behalf, and it gets fun. I mean, we've had
I did that for Blake Bortles last year, by the way. I drafted Blake Bortles in the first after raising like an additional $200 or something like that.
nice.
And the weird thing is, I did not think I drafted particularly well to make up for the fact, but my team was not eliminated right away. I'm not saying I made it all the way to the end either, but I think I made it to like week 8 or 9. And I was just like, how? I took Blake Bortles in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, we've had Devin Funchess drafted to our team.
Nice.
We had AB drafted to our team, and that was like a month after he had like put a rock through a moving van. But you know what? It's so much fun seeing uh what people will come up with once they know that the pick is out there. One of them is going to have the ability to draft a person. Some people are benevolent and they don't screw us up too bad, but some people they do go for the jugular. And Devin Funches will always and that was in the COVID year. So he signed with Green Bay and then never played because he opted out. And yeah, he was on our team. He was faithfully putting up 0 points every week. It was a good time. But yeah, man, do that. Sign up. I mean, Bobby should be full by like the time we post this because um good dude. And actually I got to talk to John. I saw a bunch of stuff about it, so we got to talk to John too. We'll put our timeline one together as well. And the faithful usually come out and represent. I did actually win one last year. I won DAP Network Brothers Andrew Hall's eliminator. So that was a good time. That was a lot of fun.
The one other plug I will make is over the last few years I've done this, but if you're going to make a bet like these two made, and I'm not trying to call you guys out because I don't know what the terms of your bet was, but bet Fantasy Cares eliminators. So that basically whoever loses, you're still donating to charity. So basically, like most of my fantasy bets, if I lose, that just means I have to sign up for another eliminator, which honestly I probably would have done anyway. But at least this way charity wins when I lose. And just another plug for charity.
We bet oh god, what's that Eddie Murphy movie, Trading Places, where they make the $1 bet. All of our bets, Drew and I, are for $5, and it goes to the winner's charity of choice. Actually, uh Linda Lyons Lindellian was on one episode, and we made a bet. I don't even remember what that bet is now, but she chose the charity that's going to go to. But yeah, we it's always $5, and it's always to the winner's charity of choice. So we like to kind of keep up that spirit and donate money to things that we feel strongly about. And it's always a good time because doesn't matter if we win or lose. I mean, someone is winning. So whether I win the bet, Drew wins the bet, a charity is getting paid, not paid. A charity is getting money donated. So yeah, it's always a good time. We love doing it, and usually our bets are like wild. Like we bet Tua versus T Law. We have a Mitch Trubisky versus Justin Fields bet. I have a bet with Rocky, Mitch versus Kenny Pickett. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm
like
I'm on a lot of mailing lists for charities now that I've donated to a bunch of Josh's.
yeah, it's a good time. I always
Way to acknowledge that you lost a bunch of bets, true. Way to be a bigger man. But no, seriously, it's great. I will say, before join, and I know you're trying to wrap up, but just one last
it's
thing.
all good.
Before joining this particular community, while I'd like to think of myself as a nice person, I don't know that I was necessarily the most charitable, but in seeing some of the charitable efforts that others in the community were making, I feel like it made me a more charitable person and recognized I could do more, even if I don't have a platform, and I still don't have a platform, but whatever limited platform I had then and whatever limited platform I have at my work life or whatever now, I try to use to your point, drive either donations or attention towards causes that I care about. And that's just a credit to this community, because we all know on the one hand that this community can be pretty vicious and trash at times. But on the other hand, and I'm not part of it this year, but the Scott Fish Bowl really does bring out a really good quality in this community as well. So just wanted to call that out.
Have all the invites been handed out for that?
I don't know about all of them. I don't think so. But I purposely did not sign up this year because I wanted someone else to get my spot.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Bobby. I just want to second that because I thought of myself as a good person before really like kind of jumping into this community. And then you see people like, I mean, Scott Fish does it at a massive level. And then you just see other people who are just doing things kind of like what we're doing, where we're just like, hey, we'll make fantasy bets and we'll just like that's not something before I jumped into this community that would have even crossed my mind. And not that I had never donated to charity before that, but it's not where my mindset was at. And then like kind of being around these people, it like just kind of totally like puts you in a different mindset. And it's like, yeah, like why wasn't I thinking about that? Like the timeline league, a portion of the winning goes to charity, and that's because people like Scott Fish and John Bosch and a lot of other people have had this thought years and years ago, and they've, they are, they have such a great platform, and they just keep pushing that, and they just keep saying, hey, like, make a stupid $5 bet and donate the winner, or the loser donates it to the winner's charity or donates it to this charity, whatever. So yeah, it's where it's at, and I mean, at the end of the day, like Drew lost every bet that he made last year. Like he did. Like he just had the unluckiest streak. And honestly, if I lose every bet that I've made this year, like who cares? Like all that money is going to a charity that Drew feels, it feels has feelings for it and is close to him. And like Drew and I are friends, so like that's great. Like I'll donate to a charity that he feels really great about, and it's it's not a loss. Drew will, he'll bring it up in passing. He'll have those uh those bragging rights, but um the money, who cares? Like it's going to something great. So all right, now after our 15-minute wrap up, we'll get to the real wrap up. Thank you to everybody in the chat. The chat was like amazing. It was so lit. We had Kev, we had Kev Wheeler, we had John McGlynn, we had I saw Ridley Truther pop in there for a little bit. We talked about bacon on pizza, roast beef on pizza. I saw that. I want to try that now. It sounds amazing. Um, but the show's always better when the chat is just throwing stuff out there. We got to answer some questions. So remember, if you were watching us, still are watching us, just click subscribe. Just click the bell. Give us a little thumbs up if you like the show. All that stuff apparently does stuff on YouTube that I will never be privy of, but we would appreciate it. And if you're doing the podcast thing, we are at an hour and 45 minutes. That is a hell of a long time. You could be doing anything else, but you chose to listen to us, and that we really appreciate that. So if you stumbled on us, hit subscribe. If you're subscribing, rate and review. Again, algorithms and stuff that nobody will ever let me in on. Apparently the rate and review is important for those algorithms to get us out there and get more people listening. So on that note, Drew, we are out of here.
Late.